chairman of the philosophy department, Aligarh Muslim University. Senior colleague here, Geeta Maneksalla ji, my friends. Namaste. Professor Jayant Upadhyay ji, Professor Vivek ji, Alok Narayan ji is here, Diwan Philosophy is here. So many friends are here. So all protocol observed. I am thankful to Professor Kazmi, who all of a sudden invited me to share my views with all of you on philosophy and its utility in day-to-day life. So there is two parts, obviously. The one part is what is philosophy. So I will clarify what do we mean by philosophy, what are the problems of philosophy, its field, method, and the purpose of philosophy in this section. The other section is utility of philosophy. So without any delay, I start with the topic. Now, since the dawn of the civilization and culture on the earth, philosophy has been a very covetous subject for solving all the problems. And let us in the very start clear about the problems. So no problem is a problem for itself. All problems are problems of a self-conscious human. The mind that confronts with the problem. Suppose you are here, some problem is there, but you are not responding to the problem. Your mind is not confronted with the problem. That is not a problem for you. So a problem is always a problem for a thinking mind, a reflective mind, a self-conscious human being who confronts the problems. About the mind, so many views are there. We know about the rationalist who accept that the mind has all the potencies, as Leibniz says. It can know even the God and what not. Empiricists have a different view, and they accept that we can know only the sense experiences, sense data, and the mind transfer the sense data into the knowledge. And the critical philosophy of Kant, we know, he synthesizes both of the empiricist and rationalist view of the knowledge, and he accepted that in the formation of knowledge, the mind and the sensory senses both act. Without mind, sensations are lame, and without sensations, the mind is blind. But the thing is that, is mind a producing faculty? Is the knowledge a product? Is it a better understanding of the human mind? So far as we know, we all are self-conscious beings. And as the self-conscious being, our consciousness has evolved to that extent that we can be self-conscious. And some consciousness can be only self-conscious only if there is a object. So what is the object of the mind? Thoughts. So it is because of the thinking and thought that humans are called self-conscious beings, self-conscious human beings. Others, Subodhi is here also. Others beings are also there, but they are not self-conscious because they do not have the thoughts as the object of their being self-conscious. So I was saying that all problems are problems for a self-conscious human beings who confronts with the problems. And when one confronts, he reflects over that, try to resolve, analyze it, think over that, clarifies it, and then lastly, resolve the problem. And when one resolves the problem, he gets happiness. And for the reason of getting happiness by the clarity of thought, philosophy has been a bliss-providing discipline of knowledge. So another view is that philosophy is the highest level of knowledge. So why it is so? We will discuss here. In the very beginning, we all are doing so much metaphysics. Therefore, our stand must be clear about the metaphysics, and then we can proceed further. Because, metaphysics, we are so captive of metaphysics that we always think in terms of metaphysics. Some ontological, some metaphysical commitment is there with thought, as if we are slaves of the metaphysics, metaphysical entities. So metaphysics is taken of two types. The first is metaphysics of beyond, transcendental. So is there any reality transcendental? All philosophies, they accept that there is some reality transcendental, that you can say ultimate reality, but that is not known to our mind. Our mind cannot grasp that reality. So if our mind does not grasp the reality, what is that? We cannot know. So there is a difference between the world of knowing and the world of doing. So for the doing is concerned, you do with the thoughts, thinking, faith, and other things. So in the life of doing, in the world of doing, that is all acceptable. But so far the world of the knowledge is concerned, we can know only what the mind flashes, because we are self-conscious humans. The mind is a self-conscious being, self-conscious instrument, and that can only reflect, that can only flash. All the things we perceive outside, they are only instrumental in helping our mind to flash. So mind is not a storehouse, mind is not a factory that produces knowledge. And so far memory is concerned, what we know, we always know in the present. Even the past also we know in the present. Nobody is here, self-conscious being, who can know the past in past or in future. Everybody knows at the instant moment of the present. So all you know only in the present. Even the memories you know when it flashes in your mind. So all knowledge is in the present, and even the past and the future, all sort of knowledge is flashes only in the present. So what we know, we can know only the thoughts that flashes in our mind, and that flashes only in the present. So just I am sharing you with only my understanding of philosophy, which I formed after a long teaching of near about 45 and more than that years. Now coming to the metaphysics. So metaphysics is beyond the Metaphysical entities are taken as beyond the grasp of the mind. Even some philosophies, like some Indian philosophies, Western also, they describe so much thing about the ultimate reality, but lastly they accept that it is beyond the humans, beyond the grasp of the mind, beyond, that is transcendental to our human mind. So about that entities, whether it is ultimate or all, we speak so much about that, but we know that our limitation of mind. But the thing is that whatever is transcendental is given more reality, more existence than the empirical reality we know. Even we accept that the ultimate reality that is beyond the grasp of the mind is the existence of this world, is the essence of this world, is the existence of this world and whatnot. So far the empiricists are concerned, they accept that we know only the sense data from the empirical world. So the things, whether it is transcendental or empirical, they are metaphysical because they are beyond the grasp of mind. If there is something outside that do not enter into our mind, and then we know it. We know only when the entity flash in our mind. As such, thing in itself is unknown, is only presumed as the basis of the known. But the thing is that at human self, this is not a good logic. The better logic is that we can infer anything on the basis of what we know. Not that what is not known, and on that basis we know, we infer what we know. What we know does not need any inference. What we know directly. It places in our mind. So this is the limitation of our human mind. It is a reflexive being. It reflects, it flashes, and all the things outside or inside, thing in itself, they are instrumental in getting our consciousness flash, our self-conscious flash. We cannot know anything if it is not the object of our thought. If we know something, we know only these thoughts that flashes in our mind. The second point I want to say that about philosophy. All the students of philosophy and the learned persons, they know that philosophy, philosophia, love for wisdom, sophia, wisdom, philos, love for wisdom. Some translate is wonder of wisdom, and so many ways. In Indian philosophy, it is defined as darshana, made by the drish, root drish. This means to see, to perceive, to have the vision. But seeing of philosopher is different from the seeing of the ordinary man. Ordinary man can perceive, they perceive only things outside. But the philosophers, when they are in a philosophical position, mood, in thinking mood, in reflecting mood, the thoughts are the object of their perception. They perceive the thoughts, ideas. So there is difference between. That's why philosophers are said to be sometimes people say that they are different from the ordinary persons. Why? Because while other persons, they are involved, they are captive to the things outside, while the philosophers perceive only the thoughts. So thoughts are objects. Thoughts are the objects of our knowing, objects of our perception, and all that. And therefore, we are philosophers. So many questions are raised about who is a philosopher. So some say that the prophet, the seers, the sages, they are philosophers because they had the vision of the ultimate reality. They dialogue with the reality and what not. But if they are philosophers, then none of the others who do not have the vision of the reality are philosophers. And moreover, the persons who have the vision of reality, who have the dialogue with the reality, ultimate reality, they are sadhakas, aspirants, religious aspirants, sadhakas. They are not philosophers. Philosopher is one who confront with the problems, think over that, analyze the problems, because and ultimately resolve the problems, make some agreement. That is the process of universalization also. So those who confront with the problem while they are involved with the process of clarifying the problem, resolving the problem, till then they are philosophers. And when the problem is resolved, the human consciousness comes to the ordinary world. So an ordinary man is a philosopher when he confronts with the problem, he reflects over the problem, analyzes the problem, and makes the problem clear, makes agreement, and resolves the problem. So this is how I consider about the philosophers. So in the sense of a metaphysician, in the sense of a sadhaka, none of us is philosopher. But in the sense of confronting the problem, thinking over that, resolving that, and coming to a resolution, we are all philosophers. So philosophy is an occasional activity of rare minds. The rare minds say that those who confront with the problems have rational hunger, and in proportion to the rational hunger, this means in proportion to the confronting with the problems, they are philosophers. More great philosophers, less philosophers, and all that. So in this sense, we all are philosophers who confront the problem, resolve the problem. Now but one point is very clear, that philosophers perceive the thoughts. They do not perceive the God. They do not or anything else. They perceive only the thought of the God, idea of the God. So they can know only the idea. And idea is the object of their contemplation. Idea is the object of their concentration, analysis, and understanding. Now, you know, for being a philosopher, one thing is very important. For philosophy, language is not like fish for the water, water for the fish. Language is not like the water for fish, but it is like the gills of the water. A fish can survive without the water for a while, but without gills, it cannot survive for a moment. So, without language, no philosophical thinking, no knowledge is possible. Can you think of any knowledge without language? Have you any knowledge without language? I think that you all agree that all knowledge is in and through, that is infused by the language. You cannot know anything that is not influenced by language. Even we know the ultimate reality and all that things only through the language. If the language is not involved, you would not have the knowledge of anything. So, about the reality, absolve that reality of the transcendental and empirical. Both are metaphysics. And metaphysics cannot be divided into transcendental and empirical. Metaphysics is metaphysics. Whether it is the metaphysics of transcendental or empirical metaphysics of contemporary Western philosophers. They reduce the transcendental metaphysics into empirical metaphysics. Now, you know, Hegel wrote about the dissolving factor of the metaphysics. What is the dissolving factor of the metaphysics? He said that those who accept the metaphysics accept that it is beyond the grasp of the mind and language. If it is beyond the grasp of the language and mind, metaphysics deconstructs. It is dissolved. Because there is no language possible, there is no grasping of the ultimate reality or the things outside, things in itself. So the metaphysics is dissolved. But more than that, more than Hegel, the later development says that not only that it is beyond the grasp of the language and the mind, but it is beyond the grasp of the mind, but also that some reality which is transcendental is so because it is isolated from the language, isolated from the language. So in philosophy, nothing is acceptable if it is not expressed in the language. You are a very wise man. You are a learned scholar. You are a saint. What does it mean for me? It means only for me when you speak something. That becomes the object of my understanding, the object of my analysis, and the object of my reflection and resolve and all that. The evaluation of mental power and all that. So, somebody says that you are a very realizer and all that. That is not concerned with philosophy. Philosophy concerns only with what is expressed in language. So we are academicians. We are not practitioners. We are academicians. And to be very honest, as academicians, the things beyond it is object, maybe the object of your practical practices, sadhana, but for philosophy, it is of no use. Whether that is eternal, non-eternal, transient, and immortal. That hardly, because nothing is acceptable to us if it is, and metaphysics is deconstructed if it is accepted beyond the language also. So Wittgenstein and others, they also do not mind about this fact. But later on, Wittgenstein investigations realizes that yes, language is there, but the world is there. We cannot grasp this the world, but the relation between the world and the language, we construct a world representation, and that is the object of philosophy. So it is a new construct, it is a new conception of Wittgenstein, and have no cognitive ground. I will not go much on that issue. Later on, when you like, I will speak something on that. So metaphysics is there, philosophy is primary philosophy, it is metaphysics, but the metaphysics in its very construction is dissolved by its own logic, that it is beyond the grasp of the mind and that it is beyond the grasp of the language. It is dissolved. The second very important question is raised about philosophy is that, is philosophy analysis? Yes, Western philosophers for long, they were involved and still they are involving somehow or the other in analysis of the language. So there are two types of analysis, linguistic analysis and philosophical analysis. So with linguistic analysis, linguists are concerned. They occupy with the linguistic analysis. How the language is used in a part of time, in a part of place. But the philosophers concerned with the knowledge the language expresses. So this is philosophical analysis. Something becomes philosophical only if it is the object of our knowledge. It flashes in the mind. And what flashes is in present and it flashes only in and through in language. So you cannot put the language separate from the philosophy, because philosophy cannot start even without the language. Even the things which are like negation or nothing, they are also expressed in language, and therefore we know that. So analysis, philosophical analysis, is very important for our daily practice also. In analysis, if there is some problem we confront, we analyze the problem into smaller parts, make agreement with agreeable parts, and if something is not agreeable, we make an agreement to disagree on that point. But the agreement is must, and then the problem is solved. So analysis is just not like the peeling of the onion. प्याज के छिलने की तरह से विश्लेषण नहीं है. Most of the Western philosophers think like that. But we think that analysis is not the analysis like peeling the onion. So you peel out all the layers of the onion and lastly you find nothing. Oh, there is nothing hidden in this onion. All these petals, sepals I have separated, but inside I got nothing. This is not analysis like that. So philosophy is not like flying the fly from the bottom. Because through the analysis, the problem is clarified and we get wisdom about the problem. So philosophical analysis is important for the philosophy people who are doing philosophy. But this philosophical analysis takes help of other type of analysis also. For example, you see hermeneutic analysis, philological analysis, they also help. But for what? They take the help of those only for clarifying the issue, clarifying the problem. So all the methods we use for analysis, whether the analysis of concept, analysis of the thoughts, analysis of the language, hermeneutic analysis, philology, and other sorts of analysis, they all are for clarifying the issue in hand, clarifying the problem in hand. And if the problem is solved, we get happiness, we become happy. That is the problem. This does not mean that if the problem is resolved, now there is no more problem for philosophers, because you have the so much sensitive time that you very often resolve a problem, and the next moment also we confront with the problem, and you become reflective about that. So this is not a constant process, this is occasional process. And when you think about that, you try to resolve that. During that period only, you are a philosopher. And the resolving of one of the many problems, it does not exhaust, because it is a process that begins with the confrontation of the problem. So it is proportional to the pure rational anger. If somebody is there and who has no rational anger, who does not confront with the problem, he is not a philosopher. There will be a doubt about his rationality, whether he is a rational man or not. If he is not, there are so many persons living a very luxurious life, having a lot of money, capital, but they never think about it. It never confront with any problem. So they are not self-conscious beings. So there is a question about them as human beings. Now, so many things about linguistic analysis, observing style, critical philosophy, critical thinking. They are also sometimes identified as philosophy. Professor Latif ji, Professor Chairman, I have the time of full.
You can continue, but the most important part is that it is utility.
Not listening. How much time I have? I can speak.
You can speak. Keeping in view.
Your speaker is not on.
No. My speaker is on, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can continue for another 15 minutes.
Oh, 15 only.
Okay. Let it be 20. But it depends upon the patience of audience. Okay. Because the question answer is also, we have to put some question and we need some answer. Thank you. You are going well.
If it will not finish, then it will be adjourned for the next meeting.
Okay.
Now coming to the next problem, the object of philosophy. What is the object of philosophy? So I have reduced it only to the problems. And all problems are thought. Intelligible beings. We confront with and we think over that. We try to resolve that. That is, of that we do the philosophical activities. Now, about the philosophical thinking. What sort of thinking is philosophical thinking? That is very important. Because, sociology, medical science, technology, they also think about that. And they can also claim that they are philosophers. In this way, we have to consider about what sort of thinking they do, what sort of reflection they do. So there are very popular two views. The one view is that it is a subjective thinking. Philosophy is a subjective thinking. So by subjective thinking, I mean that the consciousness we perceive through the senses. But when we perceive insight, and try to get solution of some problem. So the object is insight, or subjective, or it is in mind. As psychology, sociology, they are subjective. They think about the subject. So they are doing subjective thinking. Objective thinking is that we think over the object. So something is outside there, we think. I say that is a part. You also think about that in similar way. But I'm not going to go into the detail of the objective thinking, but the thinking on the object outside, as sociologist, psychologist, outside or inside, they think about the thing in itself. Descartes, he says that yes, I can know even the God. Leibniz too. So their thinking is objective thinking. Even Berkeley says that there is a greater idea. So their thinking is objective thinking. The reality is outside. The reality of our thinking is reflecting is outside. So we do objective thinking. In contrast to the objective thinking, some persons think that we do subjective thinking, like Vedanta. They say that the reality is inside, not outside. So if you want to perceive the reality inside, your reality, then you have to draw your senses inside and realize the inside reality. So that is, they say that immediacy. So some knowledge is by mediacy through the senses and mind. Some knowledge is immediacy, directly we know by peeping into our own existence. So this
Ready
is
to pair.
in grasp the object of the subjective and the objective thinking. But as I started with defining philosophy, philosophy is a cognitive activity, and the problems are the object that we ponder over, that we reflect upon. So if we perceive the
Connected.
they flash in our mind. The problems are cognitive. So we think, our thinking is not subjective, not objective, but cognitive thinking. We reflect upon that what we know. If the problem is expressed in our mind, we know it as the problem. And if we think for its solution, we get a solution by so many conscious activities, analysis, agreement, disagreement, and lastly, resolve. So this way, our philosopher's thinking is cognitive thinking, and that's why we say that we belong to the highest level of knowledge, not like those who concerned with subjective and objective thinking. You can say that some question about philosophy of philosophy. What is philosophy? Very often we say that in the process of philosophizing, you find that the coming philosophers, they criticize the preceding philosophers and they add something by showing the inconsistencies of the earlier philosophers. In fact, there is no history of philosophical reflections because it is always done in the present. It is a knowing process. So there is no philosophy of philosophy. Because if you think that there is a philosophy of philosophy, this means the philosophy ceases to be so. Because even if you think about the philosophy of the philosophy, reflect over that, that is also a philosophy. So philosophy has no philosophy of its own. Some people say that there is meta-philosophy and like that. But here, in philosophical thinking, there is nothing like meta. Philosophy is always a philosophy. You think over the problem. The problem may be the sociological, medical, engineering, and other problems. But when you think over that, reflect over that for clarity and conception, it is a cognitive activity. And when you do a cognitive activity, you do a higher level of activity that is we call philosophy. That is a cognitive activity for excellence. Now something about utility of philosophy, day to day. Otherwise, the lecture will not complete. You know that in the earlier time, philosophy has been the guide for sciences, management, and other disciplines. And because of which the sciences were discovered as the part of the welfare of the human community of the earth and like that. So management is also, it was married with the philosophy, and because of which management was using the data for the welfare of the earth, others, and the well-being of the humans. So it is the discipline of wisdom, and you know, without wisdom, a human cannot be a human. So if you apply all the time your wisdom, you will face no problem in a social living, in a family living. The problems arises only if you do not think about the things philosophically. For example, you see, suppose there are two students. One said that our mother, I will say Amma. Other say that I will say Mum. Another say that I will say only Ammijan, and like that. So the other say that no, you say Ammijan. Why you are saying mother? I will not say mother. I will say only Ammijan. So he is not incorrect, but they can fight on the use of the word for mummy, Amma, and mother. They say that no, they have cultural infatuation with the use of the words. So if you are a philosopher, you can check that fight, the struggle that takes the form of the communal rights sometimes. For example, we see about God, so many communal rights often occur in India and abroad also. So if there is a philosopher and there is a communal right going to be started, if some problem is there and the problem is getting flourished, is spreading, there is responsibility of the philosophy students and philosophers. How they are not trying to solve, they are not playing their own role. If they will play, they will put them sit on the table, and you have to make some questions, queries, like that. Is God one? Is Allah one? Is like that. Both will accept. Is it Almighty? Both will accept. Is it the creator of the world? Both will accept. Then what is the difference? Why they are fighting on the difference? The difference is only on the language. That he said that I will use God, I will use Allah. But in language is like the garb. And we change the garbs very often. You use a different language, I use a different language, some other use. So many languages are there. And for any God or any, so many words are there. In Sanatan Parampara, all names are the names of the God. In Islam also, behind the name of the God, all names are designated to persons. But they are fighting on the name of the God. So the philosopher come to make an agreement on the use of the language for the ultimate reality. Is it Allah or is it God? If they do not agree Even if they can disagree, you can make an agreement that, okay, on the use of the language, you may disagree, but you have to agree to disagree. This way, the problem will be solved, and the fight will not spread out, will not turn into a communal right. In family, philosophy empowers the questioning power. So a philosopher is not satisfied in asking the question about something that is not clear to him. To the extent of clarity, he asks questions. And till the problem is solved, till the matter is clear, then the questioning stops. So philosophy, the beauty of philosophy is that it enhances the power of questioning of human mind. So this is very beautiful task that philosophy performs, enhancing the power of human power of questioning, and it denies the questioning for the questioning's sake. It accepts only the questioning for clarity's sake, not questioning's sake. So this is also a very beautiful use of the philosophy, that a philosophy student enhances his power of questioning for clarity, and not for he is disciplined not to ask the questions for question's sake, but for questions for clarity's sake. Now, some points again I will say. There is family quarrel and philosophy. If you are a philosopher and you use philosophy in day-to-day life, there will be no family quarrel. Just I will take one example, because Professor Fazmi has said that I have much little time. And I took a very long background. So I am briefing it. Only 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
So suppose my wife and I often quarrel. For what? I am quarreling with her. She does not know. She quarrels with me. I do not know the reason. And the gap, the cultural gap between me and my wife widens to the extent that we get separated, divorced, and so many things. We make our family, the heaven, a hell. But if we are philosophy persons, for example, I am giving. In my young age, I used to go to deliver lectures in so many universities, and month after month, I was busy in delivering lectures here and there. So my wife was not physically well, and when I came, she was not speaking to me. One day passed, second day she turned face from me, third day she turned the ways to go up from me. So I thought, what is the problem? Let me know at least. So I prepared a cup of tea and invited her to take with me this cup of tea. Somehow or the other, she managed to come to share the tea. And then on the table I asked, what is the problem? What is the mistake on my behalf? You are not speaking. What is the problem? So she said that you never care about me. This is not good. You never care about me. You ignore me, and like that. So I said that I used to go to deliver lecture or other academic activities to other universities only for some money. And it is for your happiness, not for my own happiness. I get all these troubles only to help your household, to help your household, so that you can
manage the house expenses well. At that time, we are getting very much less salary and all that. When I said that it is for your happiness, and if you do not like this, I will never go. Do not go. I do not go. I will not go anywhere. I will be here. On the cost of your getting angry, I cannot go anywhere. Then she began to weep, and she agreed. And since then, she never
objected.
She never thinks about that, and she allows that yes, you go. Another thing that most of the family problems caused by the ego, that we are male persons, we maintain the family, we sustain the wife and children, so they are subordinate to me. The wife thinks also so that I maintain the family, all things I manage, and I am condemned to be subordinate. This is not good. So she has an ego. Child has also an ego that my father is not giving time to me, and he can also stop speaking to you. He can show his aggressive angriness and all that. But if you invite him to sit together and talk to him, what is the problem? And you analyze his problem, we make agreement with the child. He will not be angry with you, the wife will not fight with you. So this is the way of philosophy. So philosophy students, philosophy scholars, they are should practice this philosophical method for removing the family quarrel. So there will be only
This is the utility, very nice.
Another point I will make, and then I will stop. 2 points I will make. Suppose you are a PhD student not getting a job. So you are qualified. You can think philosophically that I am well qualified, but in the country where I am born, in the province I am born, there is no vacancy advertised. So the problem is on that side, not the problem. If my mind is clear about the problem, at least mental level, at least thought level, I will not be perturbed. I will not be disturbed. So for normal life also, philosophy helps to make you wise, make you rational about the things. You have to generalize the problem, and you can resolve. You can universalize the problem, and then it is resolved. Another point is, we are human beings. We are suffering from 3 sort of illness, 3 sort of diseases. The first disease is the disease of the body. And with the cure of the body, medical science, Ayurveda, and other pathies occupy themselves in the cure of the body. And they have developed a lot. They have developed in a way that thousands and thousands millions people are getting bread and butter and a very good life out of the cure of the physical illness. They have developed so. The second is language. So if you abuse me, or if you say something obsessive to me, I will get pain. If you corrupt the language, your culture will be, your mind will be, your thoughts will be corrupted, and the culture will be corrupted. So language is also be sound, and for the soundness of the language, the philosophy of grammar occupies themselves. So grammarians, they do purify the language for us. And there is the tradition. Tradition, as the word was used in the tradition, we follow that. so that the word is not corrupted. The language is not corrupted. Because if the language is corrupted, our ideas will be corrupted. If the ideas will be corrupted, our culture will be corrupted. So the third illness, third type of disease is the disease of thinking and thoughts. You know, mental diseases, psychologists, they cure. But in our cure, philosophical cure and psychoanalyst doctors' cure is different. Doctor analyst, if you reach to a psychiatrist, he will try to know what the problem is with you. And in the same line, same tune, if he is enemy to some and he is gone mad about the enemy, in the same tune, like the prophets and others, he will raise your emotion to the extent and try to become befriended. But sometimes raising the emotions to the highest level becomes very dangerous for the mental patients. Our view is that, our philosophical approach is that, if our thoughts are ill, thinking is ill, everything is disturbed. Because thinking affects the body, it kills the cells of the body, and so on. So the philosophical solution is, I will give a very little example of a weaver. One fine morning, a weaver was weaving towards Aligarh railway station, and he saw a lot of bundles and bundles of the cotton on the platform of the station. And from the morning walk, he was coming to his house, thinking all through about so many bundles of cottons are there. I am the single weaver in this region. How many days it will take in making the cotton in a good condition? How many time it will take in making the threads? How many time it will take in making the threads into clothes? So thinking so, he gone ill. So many doctors came, but they could not cure his disease. Then if doctors failed, then Hakim used to go, "Arey, jhad ko, kya bolte usko?" They also tried their level best, but they failed. He was still ill. So, lastly, a student of philosophy approached him. He inquired into from what day you are ill, from what time you are ill, what you saw in the morning when you are walking there. So he said that I saw a lot of bundles and bundles of cotton on the platform of the station. He got the point that his thinking is ill. It is deviated, and because of the deviated thinking, he has got it. So, you know what solution he gave? He gave the solution that, that cotton logs, a child burnt a match into it, and all the cotton is burnt. It had turned into the ashes. So what happened? The weaver come up very fast from the bed, and he got cured. So this is the philosophical solution to the third problem. So philosophical systems in India and abroad are the therapeutic. They are cure against the illness of the thoughts. And you know, it helps, philosophy helps in curing. Philosophy is a remedy against aggression and terror also. Suppose how it is helpful against removing the how it is helpful in removing the terror and aggression. I will tell you one or two lines and then I will sum up. Suppose I am teaching two students and I make them great scholars. I make them know how the satellites are made, how the missiles are made, how they are launched and all that. One student can think that, oh, I have learned a great science by which I can save the humanity, save the teacher who has taught me, and save the earth. I can use it for my safety, for the safety of my country, for the safety of my teacher, for the safety of our families. The other say that, oh, I have learnt a great knowledge. Now I can make missiles. I can launch the missiles. I can destroy all those who have a different ideology, who do not agree with my ideology, or who have their own ideology. So the terror start in him. That all those who are different from his ideology, they won't have the right to live on the earth. And I have a weapon and I can destroy them. From here the terror. But if he has a philosophical insight and the philosophy teachers teach him that if you have learned something from a teacher, and everybody learned something from early ages, young age, from his parents, uncles, neighbors, society. Some of the other things they learn from the nature, they learn. So they have the responsibility, they have the duty for them, because he has been benefited by them. So if they have benefited him, it is his duty to benefit them either. So if he thinks the good of those from whom he has learned something, he will never turn to a terrorist. Rather, he will think about the welfare through the weapon. So, philosophy in day-to-day practices, I can conclude it, that I should see you or anybody, even the surroundings, as if I see myself. I can do venerable, I can have and perform venerable duties. I can regard to all others in the nature, to